Hi, third graders. This is Mrs. Oyster, and this is the first lesson of our last math unit about measuring weight and capacity. So, today we are going to be working on capacity. We'll talk about what that is, and your learning target is to determine the most appropriate customary unit to use to measure liquid volumes. And today, in particular, we're going to be talking about cups, pints, quarts, and gallons. So first, let's talk about what capacity is. The amount of liquid that a container holds is called its capacity or its volume. We might use both words. They mean the same thing in this instance. So the best thing you can do when we're learning about things like capacity is think about things in your house that you use to hold or measure liquid. Things like cups, measuring cups, water bottles, um, things you use to water your plants. So anything that can hold a liquid has a capacity, it has a volume. And what that means is how much it can hold. These down here are some common tools that we use to measure liquid. So this is a measuring cup. These are individual measuring cups. You might use those also to measure things like flour and sugar. And then here's another kind of a pitcher that also measures liquid. So the amount of liquid that a container can hold is called its volume or capacity. So look at these examples up here. Here's a water bottle, a water pitcher, it looks like maybe a shampoo bottle, a bucket, and a gallon of milk. These are containers that hold liquid. And what we're going to learn today is to estimate how much liquid they can hold and what units we would use to measure them. We measure capacity using standard units, just like we use standard units for measuring length. If you remember back a couple of units ago, we measured how long things were using inches. Inches were our unit. Well, we don't use inches to measure capacity, but we do use other units. To make things a little more complicated, there's two systems of measurement units. We have the customary system, which is the one that we typically use in the United States. And then there's also a metric system, which is what most of the rest of the world uses. So they're two completely different systems. They have different units. They're just completely different. We're not going to mix and match them. Okay, so today's lesson is just about customary units, and probably these will be the ones that you're most familiar with hearing. So these units are cups, pints, quarts, and gallons. And these are pictures of things you might have seen in the grocery store or around your house that shows what a cup is, what a pint is, a quart, and a gallon. And by the way, it's pint, not pint. A lot of kids like to say pint. It has a long I sound, pint. So the cup of milk, or sorry, the little container of milk that you get at your school lunch, that is one cup. That holds 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of liquid. A small ice cream container like these Ben& and Jerry's, that holds a pint. A quart would be one of these big juice containers. There's apple juice. You may have seen those at the store. And then a gallon of milk, these big plastic jugs of milk, that holds 1 gallon. So we measure small amounts of liquid using cups. Medium to large amounts are measured in pints or quarts. And then the largest unit of measure is gallons. So if you're measuring something that's big, that holds a lot of liquid, you're probably going to use gallons. Okay, so here's a bigger picture. This is all milk. This would be a cup of milk, a pint of milk, 1 quart of milk, and then 1 gallon of milk. So you can see how those measures or how those units relate to one another. Now, you will not need to memorize this in third grade, but you will start working with this as you get older. If you have a cup and then you have another cup, that is equal to 1 pint. So 2 cups equals 1 pint. Now, if you have a pint and then another pint, guess what? You've got a quart. So 2 pints equals 1 quart. If you have 4 quarts, that is equal to 1 gallon. Another way to look at it, 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts, which is equal to 8 pints, which is equal to 16 cups. So that means that 1 gallon is the same as 16 cups. This is another graphic that you might see going forward. It's called Actually, no, this one doesn't have a name. I'm thinking of something different. But it shows how the G, the big G, is the gallon. And inside, we've got the 4 quarts. And inside each quart, there's 2 pints. And inside each pint, there's 2 cups. So, this again is another way to visualize how these units relate to one another. All right. So let's quick talk about what you might measure with these units. So you measure medium amounts of liquids in quarts and pints. So small families might purchase a quart of juice or milk to enjoy for the week. Pints of liquids are usually just for one or maybe two people. So if you go to the store and you buy a carton of juice or a milk to share for the week, something that looks like this, that's probably about a quart. If you're getting an ice cream tub, that looks delicious, you might be splitting a carton of ice cream, which is usually about 1.5 to 2 quarts. Now, what about pints? If you wanted a personal drink, just your own soda, your own glass of juice or bottle of juice, then you'd probably get a pint. And if you wanted to share an ice cream, maybe with just one other person or maybe even all by yourself, you would probably get a pint of ice cream instead of this one that's 1.5 quarts. Okay, now what about gallons? The largest unit of measure is gallons. So big things of water or juice or milk come in gallons. So if you're grocery shopping, families will buy a gallon of milk or juice if they want it to last for a week or longer. We definitely get milk in the gallons because we go through it pretty fast. The amount of water in your entire kitchen sink is going to be measured in gallons. That's a lot of water. If you fill up your bathtub, we would use gallons to measure it because that's a lot of water. When you wash your clothes, your washing machine uses gallons of water. If you have a mini swimming pool, you're going to use gallons of water to fill it. And you might buy a gallon of ice cream if you wanted to share with a bunch of people at your birthday party or possibly in your class. Okay, so here's the question. I want you to be able to decide which unit you would use to measure the capacity of this container. And we're going to look at a bunch of different containers. Um, you would maybe not use 1 cup or 1 pint or 1 quart or 1 gallon, but what unit do you think you would use? And then down here is a reference to help you remember what each one looks like. So if you're measuring how much water this bucket can hold, you're probably not going to use cups because that's going to be a lot of cups. But you might not use gallons either because they might not be big enough to hold a gallon. So I would say if you were going to measure how much water is in this bucket, you would use either pints or quarts, depending on the size of the bucket. How about a vase for flowers? Well, that's definitely not going to hold a gallon, but it's going to hold lots of cups. I would say maybe a pint. A pint, something around this size, would be used to fill this up. What about a carton of yogurt? If we could see this label a little clearly, it might actually give us the answer. A carton of yogurt is probably going to be a pint, measured in pints, maybe a quart if it's a great big one. What about a pitcher of lemonade? Probably a pint or a quart. If it's a medium-sized thing, we'd use pints or quarts. So let's look at a couple more here. And I'm going to tell you that it's kind of harder to estimate with pints and quarts because they are so similar. If it's a small thing, we're going to use cups. If it's a big thing, we're going to use gallons. If it's a medium, we kind of just have to make a judgment call. So a sink, your kitchen sink or your bathroom sink, definitely gallons, right? That holds a lot of water. A coffee pot is probably going to be cups. A bathtub, definitely gallons. What do you think about a bucket? Well, we couldn't really decide. We said gallons or quarts here. It kind of depends on how big it is. Buckets do come in lots of sizes. How about a mug, like a coffee mug? Definitely cups, because that's pretty small. A pitcher of juice, cups, pints, or quarts, depending on how big it is. How about a fish tank? And we're thinking like a big one. Gallons for sure. A can of paint? Probably quarts or gallons. A carton of whipped cream. And that'd be cups or pints, depending on how big it is. A vase for flowers, cups or pints. And how about a hot tub? Definitely gallons, because those are big. So, your job today is going to be to decide which of these units would be the best to be used to measure different things. You're going to write in the box which unit you would use and then why. So, for example, number one has been done for you. It says the kitchen sink filled with water. The most appropriate unit would definitely be gallons. Why? Because the kitchen sink would hold over a gallon of water. It holds a lot of water, and so you would measure it with gallons. Now here's another one that should be pretty easy for you. A full Olympic-sized swimming pool. What do you think? Definitely gallons because a huge swimming pool is going to hold a lot of water. And so you're not going to want to use these itty bitty cups to fill a swimming pool, right? You would measure it in gallons. You would use the biggest unit. All right, you're going to complete this and submit it to your teacher. And tomorrow we're going to measure capacity using the other system of measurement. Thanks for listening, class.